Thank you, Daniel, for the introduction, and I will welcome everybody to the Govtech track. So the reason we're here today is because innovation is not just limited to the private sector. And in fact, governments play a key role in technology, whether if it is as users, developers, regulators, funders, or even buyers of innovation. So during the last years, there have been movements within the technology industry that's related to government to make government much more entrepreneurial and much more agile with the objective of having them work directly with startups that have solutions that could work in the public sector. So some of you may be wondering if this is actually a priority for the Spanish government. And to find out about that, we have put together a very interesting interview, and we have brought in Francisco Polo, who is a High Commissioner at Spain's Entrepreneurial Nation, who's also a former entrepreneur and former Secretary for State for Digital Advancement. And we have invited him to join us in an interview led by Manuel Muñiz, who's Provost and Dean at IE University and former State Secretary at the Spanish Foreign Ministry. So welcome both of you. Please join me on stage, and we're really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be with you today. I'm happy to see that there's some interest at almost 9:30 a.m. on the last day of the conference on Govtech. It's in fact a fascinating topic because government and the public sector are a huge spender in innovation and technology, and they can become a major catalyst for innovation, and the Spanish government has been very focused on this, and we're very fortunate to have Paco here with us because he's in fact the leader within the Spanish government at the PM's office on our efforts to become an entrepreneurial nation, and that to a large extent involves also public innovation. So my first question is, why do you think this is relevant? How can the public sector contribute to the innovation push? How do you see this? And a follow-up question will be, what are we doing about it? But then I'll try to ask you also about the long term. But why is this relevant?
Well, I think this is important because it goes beyond what we usually talk about. We should talk about startups, or we talk about the economy. But the reason why we decided to create this High Commissioner is because of 2008. In 2008, Spain suffered, as many other countries, one of the worst financial crises in history. But there was a big difference between Spain and every other country in Europe. For example, the UK, France, and Germany, they took only 2 years to recover the same purchase level they had before. Spain took 6 years, so three times the time that other countries needed. And that meant a lot more of suffering from people and families. And that's what we want to change. We want people to suffer less, to have an economy that is more resilient. We have jobs that are more resistant to financial crisis. And we want to do that with startups, with big corporates, and with government. So basically what we want to do is to change the productivity system in Spain. So we have a system that gets innovation through startups, that we not only promote that innovation within the startup ecosystem, that it also translates to the corporate system. And we also want to do that by closing different gaps, social gaps that we have in the country. So we want to close the gender gap, the territorial gap, the age gap, and also the socio-economic gap. That's the vision from government. We want an entrepreneurial nation with the highest social impact in history. So that's the why.
I mean, I've always thought that this was fairly extraordinary that the government would make such a big bet at the Prime Minister's office level to try to foster this and push this. But when you think specifically about government, so of all of those actors that you cited, the startups, the corporates, and then government, when you look at government as a catalyst, as an actor in this space, what are the fundamental features that you see there? What type of government and public administration do you think will make an entrepreneurial nation possible?
Well, thanks for the question. This is something that has been on my mind for a very long time, and we are very happy that this year the Prime Minister decided to present the Spain Entrepreneurial Nation Strategy. So it's released, it's out there. We have a document that states what we want to do and what is needed to do. So basically what we did was putting together a strategy that is using the innovation power of startups, working together with corporations to generate virtuous circles among them, and by closing these gaps. In this strategy, we are featuring 50 measures that represent a consensus with the startup ecosystem and with different bodies in government. So basically, we have a 10-year plan that is going to allow us to turn Spain into an entrepreneurial nation. So when we have the check in every measure that we have in there, we are going to be closer to that. These 50 measures that we have in the strategy are basically trying to face the 4 big challenges that face Spain specifically. The first one is accelerating the level of investment in startups and scale-ups in our country. France is 4x and Germany is 5x above us in terms of investment in startups. We want to close that gap in the next 10 years, and we want to turn Spain the #1 country in the continental Europe in terms of investment in startups and scale-ups. Second, talent. We want to turn Spain into a haven for talent. We know that we are able to develop, and you know it very well. We have great talent, and we're developing great talent in Spain. We need to be the best country in terms of retaining that talent and attracting that talent. We always talk about Spain, about this amazing country. We also need the legal framework that allows us to have that talent, to attract that talent.
Sure.
Third is promoting policies in order to turn startups into scale-ups. Why? Because we know that big companies resist better the impacts of financial crisis, so they are better positioned in order to keep the jobs that they are able to generate. So that's what we want, a more resilient economy. And fourth, we want to turn the public administration into an entrepreneurial nation. Basically, this means for us removing barriers. Second, creating legal frameworks that are more positive for startups and scale-ups and the innovation system, and putting together the investment that not even the riskiest venture capital fund would be able to do. An example of this is the Next Tech Fund that we just launched. That means 2 billion euros from government and 2 billion euros from the private sector, creating the biggest venture capital fund in Spain ever. Or this new figure that we created, PERTES, that allows the government to make a calling to the country to face the challenges of the future. The first PERTE that we have launched is the one about the electric and connected vehicle, and we are putting on the table 25 billion in order to make this possible. We have never seen an investment like this in order to face the challenge of the future. So this means turning the administration into an entrepreneurial nation for us.
On the PERTES, I think this is one extraordinary example also of public-private partnerships of the state and the government being able to deploy enormous resources to change the economy and to change our productive model. So we happen to be in a very particular time, I think, with a huge opportunity because of the European funds. So we have a plan, and now we have the funds to be able to deploy it. No? So if you were to draw, and I think this is the last question that I get to ask because this is the timer, right?
It is.
If you were to imagine where Spain should be in 10 years, or you would wish it to be in 10 years, how would that look? You know, how would that country look for you? It's the same as asking if you get to deploy fully your strategy and it works out. No, how will this place look in 10 years' time?
So now that we have the High Commissioner for Spain Entrepreneurial Nation, so we have the institution to do it. Now that we have a plan, that is the strategy, and now that we have the funds, that is 4.2 billion euros, only to build the entrepreneurial nation, what we seek is to reach 2030, and being in a Spain that has become an entrepreneurial nation, that means that we are able to attract investment through Europe and the world, that we have the best talent available in the country, that we have a higher percentage of scale-ups working in Spain or from Spain, creating better jobs for everyone, and where the government has become clearly an ally to do this. And we are recognized internationally as the entrepreneurial nation with the highest social impact in history.
Well, that's a compelling vision. I wish you the best of luck, and you know you can count on IE and I'm sure the South Summit in that process. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paco, for being with us, and thank you to the Public Tech Lab for the invitation and for the initiative, and I wish you all a very good day and a productive final day to the South Summit. Thank you, Paco, once again.
Thank you.